Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby and welcome back to Map Tactics. This will be the 6th one that I've done. I must apologize for the 10-month break. These do take me an extremely long time to do. I know that a lot of you guys appreciate them, and I've got some more time, so I'm going to give you guys what you want. If this is your first time watching this video, it's going to show you exactly how I play on Siegfried line in all the different types of tanks, which has allowed me to achieve Super Unicum status with regards to efficiency WN7 and WN8, as well as 60% wins while playing solo. With the caveat that these are my map tactics, and just because I've been able to make them work doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be effective for you. There are so many different factors in World of Tanks that change how you should go about the game. Your team composition, the enemy's team composition, where specific tanks have gone and where they've maybe left some openings, the battles will develop completely differently in every game, and that's what's so amazing about World of Tanks. However, for you newer players, maybe this will be a good start for you, that then you can evolve yourself and improve upon them. Just like I used to do, I will be featuring the next map tactics video will be your most requested map. So in the comments down below, say what map you want me to do and make sure you upvote. I'd also quickly like to highlight that I will be talking about this as being the green base and this as being the red base. The general overview of Siegfried line is that the heavy tanks usually line up along here and along here on either side. Initial medium tanks will like to locate out at forward positions, roughly around here and around here on either side. You'll have your tank destroyers camping at the back in certain positions. And really, it's generally the first team to either make the breakthrough on one of the flanks that ends up winning. Alternatively, breakthroughs can indeed come inside the town, which means that there isn't one specific way to win this map. It's completely open. It's a bit like a Runeberg, really, without having quite so much cover along the west or having a central town location. So now let's look at tactics for individual tank types. Firstly, we're going to look at the heavy tanks. Now, unless you're a faster heavy tank, such as a 111, I do not recommend that you try and make it out into the initial positions out in the field. If you want to watch the field, you might want to play more of a tank destroyer role where you hold back here, you could hold back here, you could even hold this corner from the green base, this is very common, or you could even actually go into the field if you think you can make it and hide behind some of the pillboxes towards the back. However, I'm of the strong opinion that there are some key heavy locations. One is to hold this corner here. You want to poke around occasionally and try and spot your opponents. You need to make sure that you watch out from not getting flanked from behind if you're to hold that position. Alternatively, one of my favorites is to be along here, side scraping out this way to be able to shoot enemies here and here through the arches. Be careful in this position if there are artilleries. If they locate up towards the north, they are going to have you all day long. Alternatively, there is a line down here that you can side scrape out with the aim of trying to get shots down on people here and here. And there's a nice sort of spree of rocks that come out along here that you can use to go hold down to make engagements here, here, and also catch tanks very rarely through these buildings as they flank. Again, this position is quite open to enemy artilleries if they have located up here, so do be careful of that. I'd like to highlight there's a nice little opportunity for what I would call a skill engagement where you can catch your enemies completely unaware. Through here, there is a little break in the wall that you can shoot through. Alternatively, if you feel like locking down a different flank, you could work this corner here with the intent of stopping people from advancing along this location. The benefit to positions such as here and here are that if the enemy do actually make the breakthrough, that it's very easy for you to locate across and get clean shots across the rest of the field. The way that the battle evolves inside the town is nearly different every time. I could theorycraft all day about the kind of urban combat that can go on in Siegfried line, but there's only one real thing that you need to do, and that's use your camera to see if you have the jump on the enemies. Quite often they'll like to be camping in certain locations along here, in here. There'll quite often be someone at the back, people around these buildings. the enemies will like to locate here and here. And what you really need to do is to try and shoot them when they're not looking at you. Don't try and force the combat when they're aware. Generally, some of my favorite locations when I'm attacking from the green base is to try and push down here. Why? Because you've got so many opportunities to outposition your opponents, to escape their gunfire. This kind of urban combat allows you to escape, it allows you to outplay your opponents. And as long as you're focused on your map for the majority of your time, you should be able to outplay them. Now looking at it from the red base, one of my favorite positions, what it used to be, would be to start here. This allows you to get shots across the field at anyone who is being very aggressive, trying to make it to buildings such as this from the green base. Especially considering that the encounters now start out in the field. If you're in a very slow heavy, I suggest you take the safe route. If you're in a faster heavy, you might be able to sneak across here. And the same goes from the green base, that if you're in a slower heavy, you want to take the longer route. You might be able to take a faster route if you have a faster tank. After I've got the initial shots from here, I generally like to pull back and prepare for my first shot by side scraping along here. You can actually get a clean shot from here, right through here. And lots of enemies like to patrol this location. If you react fast enough, you're going to be able to shoot them without taking a shot. But if there are a large amount of artillery on the enemy team, do be careful as this position can be quite open if they like to locate around here, which is a very common artillery location. One of the best things about this location is that there are archways through here, there are archways through here. And this can allow you to get a shot on your opponent and pull back before they even knew that you could shoot them. That's one of the most important things to do in World of Tanks. If you're in a tank that does side scrape very well, then don't be afraid to use positions such as here, side scraping round this corner with the intent of shooting people here. Or alternatively, you can side scrape from this position to shoot people here. A lot of heavies like to patrol in here as well. However, do be careful that there is a cut through here, which can allow people in to attack you. I really feel that the Far East, I don't really use this area much at all. I feel that it's very open, it doesn't really have that much cover. And I feel that if you do push around this flank, that generally you are opened up to all of the people who are sitting here, as well as any of the artillery they may have, hidden tank destroyers in the bushes. I just feel that the breakthrough on the east is, in my opinion, leaves you open to a lot of fire. When you do make the breakthrough on either side, then feel free to use the ridge lines. There are some fantastic ridge lines along here, and lots of mini hills and bumps along here and here to try and progress into the enemy base while minimizing the amount of fire that you will take. Really, as a heavy, you should be trying to hold these key pivotal locations, stopping the enemy and hopefully allowing your medium tanks to be able to break through on the other flank. If there is no breakthrough, that's when you need to be starting to push into the town to try and see if you can make the breakthrough yourself. Do keep in mind what's going out on the field at all times. If you allow those mediums to flank round, you can lose your artillery very quickly and be very susceptible to flanking fire. Now let's take a look at some medium gameplay. My favorite position from the green base is to locate here. I do this as quickly and as aggressively as possible to try and spot the enemies who are trundling their way out here. You might even be able to spot the mediums here. Hopefully shoot. You can do this on the encounter very effectively as well. Both teams will spawn here and here. If you're in a medium tank, you rush straight into this location and spot some of their slower heavies and even foolish ones that try and make their way up along here. This can allow your tank destroyers and your medium tanks to quite often get very effective fire off on the enemy very early. If you are lucky enough to have artillery in your game, then you can make some very effective fire for them. There are opportunities for medium tanks to be able to locate here. This position might be a little bit aggressive early, so I feel that medium tanks generally try and end up here from the green base. Now, I still feel that's a great thing to do, to really go out and push the outer line of the field. In my opinion, it feels so much safer to be on the inside. I feel like I can withdraw a lot more quickly. And if I find that the enemies are camping in certain locations, then I'm not stuck in the field and I'm going to have a really boring game. When I've made it to this position, if I feel that there is a stalemate, I will often pull back and try and help out in the town. Because there's nothing stopping you there. You can provide some excellent DPM support for your heavy tanks and maybe initiate the breakthrough there. Alternatively, if I feel that the enemies are not looking after the field very well at all, you can start to be more cheeky and poke up here. And alternatively, you can make it to this position here. There's a very nice pillbox that sticks out. You can go hold down here and easily engage anyone who's up towards the north. Or alternatively, you continue to poke up, and there will quite often be easy heavy targets here. Be very mindful that there is a pillbox here, and there is a definite favorite for the tank destroyer, so you've got to watch out for that. My goal as well is to try and flank around. If you manage to do this, you can frequently find the artillery's favorite camping positions, take them out effectively, and this ridgeline can provide you with amazing cover from this upper area. When you're here, you can make excellent use of good gun depression, such as on some German and, well, predominantly American British tanks, to be able to shoot across at all of the people who are likely still to be camping here. Do keep in mind, however, that if you are in this position and the enemies are not idiots, then it's likely they will push out very aggressively towards you. And unless you have a lot of artillery cover, you are really not going to do very well. If I've spawned on the red base, either here or back here, it's very much the same plan for me. Get into this early position. When I'm here, I'm spotting anyone who's making their way out into the field. Or alternatively on the encounter, if they've spawned out here, if they try and take some cheeky routes rather than taking the long route, you can spot them very easily and quite often get tanks taken out immediately. Be careful in this position, because if the enemies do manage to get out into here and they've got fairly good camo ratings, they can quite often get shots into you for no return fire. If you feel the pressure is too much, that's no problem. Simply pull back behind this pillbox and you've got excellent cover. From this pillbox, you can basically lock down the field, and it's going to be very hard for the enemies to push. From this position, when coming from the red base, my tactics are very similar. If I feel I can poke up here, I will. If I feel that the enemies have left the field open, I will continue around here with the idea of trying to poke up at the heavy tanks camping here. Do be mindful that you quite often have tank destroyers at these kind of locations that will try and engage you. However, the idea is to continue, and if you can try and make it here, this is amazing to counter any artilleries that will be likely here, as well as provide excellent fire support around their camp line. If they have absolutely locked down the field and it's very dangerous here and you don't feel like you can progress, then there's no harm in pulling back and trying to provide some fire support for your heavy tanks. Moving on to your light tanks, I feel that the gameplay is very similar for me as it was for the medium tanks. I like to get to these initial positions from either side, irrelevant if it's an encounter or if it's a standard battle, and basically lock down either side of the field. Just spot, spot, spot. Do not let the enemies through. Just be careful if the enemies have got the same idea and try and end up opposite you. Because if you're in your light tanks, you're not going to be able to take some hits. And if a medium tank just decides to zerg and push over at you, then you're going to die very quickly. After this initial period, I basically like to try and do a hero run along here. And you need to time this very well. You need to literally wait until you feel that you can make it. And there's a lot of skill in it. There's a lot of skill in that. If you can make it up to here, there are opportunities to try and get down below this ridgeline. However, people will be more than happy to try and zerg you. Maybe you'll be happy to just take out the enemy artillery, or maybe you'll want to try and make an escape all the way back. Depending on how fast your scout is, these runs can be very effective indeed. Alternatively, I know there are scouts that will like to take a different approach, and that is to try and go as far west as you can and try and use your camo rating of the positions up here. Locating up here can be very effective indeed, as long as a medium tank does not proceed to engage you. As if a medium tank comes to engage you here, there's going to be very little cover, albeit from anyone who's located around here. So if you can't handle the heat of a medium tank engaging you and you don't have artillery support, then you might not want to proceed up there. I personally always feel much safer around here than locating up around here or up around here, because I feel that this run it's much easier to get out. I feel like if I locate in the corner, the only way I can do is to fall back. There's no cover really from any kind of medium tanks if they try and counter you. It's the same deal really with the red base. You need to be very careful about this run that you do not get caught here. This is the danger zone really for your light tanks. Here, if the heavies that are located here and here spot you, they will engage you. And in this position, it's very easy for the tank destroyers that often like to camp around here to take you out. If you can manage to make it through this corridor and you get past here, then you have some serious terrain to work with to try and put pressure on the enemy tanks. Quite often you can find lumbering tank destroyers around here that you're able to try and one-on-one. If there aren't any artillery that you just want to be taking out, who generally try and hide here. Once you've made it here, if you feel like a hero, you might be able to escape if you've done it early. Generally, I recommend that you wait to do your light tank runs until as many of the enemy forces are committed as possible, and you're able to provide the most benefit you can for your team. Remember that your role as a light tank is to try and stay alive as long as possible, do as much damage as possible, and try and keep as many targets spotted as possible. I should quickly highlight that some light tanks, especially on the encounters, if you are very fast and very aggressive, you can actually make it through these tank traps here. This is quite tricky, however, and unless the enemies are garbage, you're very likely to be killed once spotted between these locations. So finally, let's look at some tank destroyer positions. Starting from the green base, quite a lot of tank destroyers do like to use the buildings out in the field. This is a favorite among many as it does provide you ample opportunity to basically shoot out from either side, while providing you with sufficient hard cover to avoid the enemy artillery and basically avoid anything that you want to avoid. It's so unbelievably common that the end of the game, and just think about this for a second, the end of the game there is one artillery left here after the whole of your town has been lost. There are some alternative positions that you can use. One of them is located up here, but my favorite is using this position up on this little hill here. What you can do up here is use these bushes / trees that are located here to shoot through and shoot down into the town without taking fire. If you want to see a good example of this in play, you can look at my Borsig tank review. That tier 8 German Waffenträger was able to pull off 2,000, 3,000 damage very, very quickly on people in the town. A perfect example of this spot in effect. Now don't be fooled, you can use this bush location in any tank, but it just feels all that more effective when you do have the biggest gun on your team. Alternatively, tank destroyers, especially if you're heavily armored, can do side scraping here, they can do side scraping here, side scrape here. You can do anything that what a heavy tank would do inside the town. I will highlight that there are a few bush locations around here that you can use if simply you want to lock down a flank. Don't be afraid if you're in a tank destroyer as well to fall back if you feel that you're going to lose the town. If you do have some good artillery support, then you can make a second gun line around here. However, don't do this initially. This is terrible positioning initially. Firstly, defend this line, the town line, and stop the enemies from winning the town. If you lose the town, do fall back, and you can make good use of these bushes and these houses to be able to create a second gun line, of which is much more effective if you do have artillery. But do keep in mind that if you do get spotted, then the enemy's artillery are going to take you out as well. Similar story from the red base. There's a very nice pillbox that you can use here. This can actually allow you to get shots down at these locations, as well as stopping the enemies from advance through the field. Tank destroyers can do all the work, side scraping here, they can side scrape here, they can side scrape here, they can side scrape here. Some tank destroyers like to locate at the back here, and some even like to use this ridge line here. From certain positions here, you can get shots down here. One thing I'll definitely highlight is that the red base does not have the same opportunity as the green base to fall back and defend, because of the fact of this very prominent ridge line here, that if you fall back behind, then you can't shoot the enemy really. This means that for the red base, it's very much an all or nothing hold along here. So guys, I'd like to finish up with adding something to my map tactics, and that is to discuss the assault mode on Siegfried line. Now just imagine that the bases have moved, this is where the assault flag is, and the people will spawn out in the field here and here. Now my favorite thing beyond a doubt to do in the assault is to try and locate up towards the north. I'll talk about attacking first. My initial position will be here, and I will change flanks almost irrelevant of the tank to try and join the north as well. Purely because this ridge line here is amazing to try and engage people anywhere as they try and poke out here, they try and poke out here and try and defend this ridge line here. This pillbox has a couple of bushes either side of it which are amazing to be able to spot enemies and be able to get shots off on them along these positions here without taking fire. And one of the most important locations on the map is in this dip here, which has a fantastic opportunity for tanks with good gun depression, be able to shoot down into the town, to shoot enemies that like to poke here, shoot enemies that like to poke here, and shoot up at the tank destroyers that like to camp around here. Once you've made that initial gunfight and hopefully that you've won it, you can basically just proceed into the town and it turns into some urban combat where hopefully you can outplay your opponents. Now to talk about defending, irrelevant of the tank that I'm in, I like to go up into these ridgeline positions here. It's very important that you try and spot enemies that like to initially poke up here. If you allow them down into here, they can spot you and allow you to get shot from these positions. So my initial priority is to get vision up here and to take these guys out as much as possible. Hopefully you've held them along this location, and then it proceeds to just be an absolute shoot fest. Enemies that like to position here, enemies that like to try and use the pillbox but don't use it correctly. Once you've pushed them back, you can proceed to advance along here with the intent of pushing along here, or alternatively, wherever you want to push, to flank your enemies and take out any of the remainder who have managed to win the other flank. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. These take me a very long time to do, so I'd really appreciate that you rate the video down below. Now I know there are a lot of other positions on the maps that can be used effectively, and maybe you've been able to make any position work. However, these are specifically the tactics that I use, and I strongly recommend that if you want to see these in effect, this is one of the key things that you can get from the live streams that I do. I live stream every Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday for 5 to 6 hours, giving you as it happens commentary. And I feel that one of the main things that you can take from that is how I play the maps and to see how I equally fail as well as succeed. And hopefully as objectively as possible explain why it happened. Anyway, I hope you leave in the comments below what map you want to see next, but specifically I'd like to see you upvote rather than just see, I'd rather see one Siegfried line with 100 upvotes than rather 100 different Siegfried line comments for obvious reasons. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.